Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Clinics podcast, sponsored by Rack Coach. And Rack Coach is a great piece of software. It will basically get your high school like you have one of the University of North Carolina strength coaches. I mean, that's how systematic and disciplined and regimented it will get your weight room. Now, I have my friend Alex Mars here. We started off this morning. We interviewed his dad. Then we did Chip Lindsey, and then we did 1 hour with Coach Chiswick. And man, that was, if you did not watch that, you need to watch it. But Alex Mars, I met you last year. Do you remember when you contacted me? Could you tell the clinic a little bit about yourself and how you first heard about me?
So I'm Alex Mars. I'm from a small town, Bluefield, Virginia. I was born and raised there and played football at Graham High School. And I got through my dad. Dad went to the Richmond clinic last year, and he said, Alex, this guy's running the show. You need to get in touch with him. And I said, all right, shoot me his number. And he gave it to me, and that's how me and you met and built a relationship now for, I guess, almost a year. So it's been a good deal.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know if you listen to your dads, but my dad is from Appalachia, Virginia.
Okay.
I think that's probably worse than being from Graham, because that's where the coal came from. Y'all are where the rich people lived.
I wouldn't say that.
So, I mean, there's 2 colleges, dude, in y'all's town. Like, that's impressive. There ain't nothing in Appalachia. Nothing.
Oh,
have you ever been to Appalachia?
Dad played at Bluefield State, so.
Oh, yeah. So we have a bond. You know, we might even be related because our, ancestors from Southwest Virginia. And, your dad is a longtime high school coach. And I played ball. Well, I didn't actually play, but I was on the team. I practiced against Chris Austin, and Todd Massey. You're probably too young even to remember those guys. Have you ever heard your dad talk about them?
I've heard Dad talk about both of them, but I was too young to watch them play.
I can see why they won a state championship. All right. He had 2 Division I offensive linemen, dude. I mean, Chris Austin looked like an NFL football player. And then Massey was an athlete. He'd gone to Marshall and then transferred to Clinch Valley College, and we were pretty good with him. Yeah, so I got a lot of respect for the Graham G-men and the tradition. So you grew up there, and your dad was the coach. How did your high school career go?
So I would probably be the one to sit there and say, and I'm okay if he sees this or is watching now or watches it later, my 4 years with Doug Mars were miserable. Because it was me and 5 other of my cousins that all played for him. And the first thing he told every single one of us when we walked in there the very first time, he said, I am not treating you all any different. When y'all step on that football field, y'all are not my kin. And I at first thought, oh, this is just Dad, just talking, just doing a spiel. He was dead serious. And in fact, I remember my very first day was report day. We had to go get the cleats, pick your jersey, get your practice cleats. And I was late. And he ripped me a new one and did it in front of everybody. And I said, all right, he's serious. So it was, I shouldn't say miserable. I mean, it was hard. I mean, it was every day. He was
worse on you. When he meant
worse on me,
treat you the same, that means you were going to get it worse.
So I had an older cousin who was a deep snapper at Tennessee, and then it was me and my other cousin who's the same age as me, and he was a walk-on DB at UVA. And all 3 of us were on the team for that 1 year together, and we all were like, all right, he's not messing around. It was Monday to Thursday, he was just ripping us. And it was at the time like, dang, chill out, man. Like, but as we got older, I mean, you realize like stuff that he did to us trained us for the real world.
Oh yeah.
And and now he's like my best friend. We play golf all the time. Call him every day, twice a day, sometimes more than that. And, after those 4 years, we built a bond that can't be broken.
Wow. And I know he's so proud of you. I mean, just listening to Gene Chiswick, and his dad was a coach. Talked to Tom McDaniels, who, he was a 40-year high school coach in Ohio, and he's got two sons coaching in pro football. One's the coach of the Raiders. Being the son of a coach, it has its drawbacks, but it has its benefits too. Because your dad laid that foundation, of coaching in Virginia, then going down to North Carolina and coaching. So you played high school ball, and then what happened with your recruitment? Where did you end up going after that? Your dad talked a little bit about it, but I just want to get your side of the story.
So when I got there as a freshman at Graham High School, I had played tight end at Graham Middle. And my whole thought and aspirations was to be a skill guy, because I always thought O-line, D-line, that's boring. Like, I want to get the praise. And so I showed up and I grabbed the number 9 jersey. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's my favorite number. It's when I was in middle school." He said, "Put that down. Grab a 50 or between 50 or 79. I said, "Why?"
Man.
He said, "Because you're going to be an offensive lineman." I was like, "What?"
Truth hurts, don't it?
So he turned me into an offensive center, and I did that for 4 years, and I deep snapped and short snapped on the side. And, during recruiting, it got to the point where I had to decide, do I want to play center or do I want to be a deep snapper? And, having been a 2-time All-State center, and I wasn't getting the offers I thought I would. I was getting like the Concords and some D2, which, I mean, that's great programs. I'm not taking anything away from them, but it got to the point where I told my dad, I said, "I want to play in the big leagues. Like, I want to get to the Power 5. What have I got to do?" And so he did with me that he did with my other cousin and taught us how to deep snap. And so I had a cousin that deep snapped at West Virginia. I had a cousin that deep snapped at Tennessee, and then I deep snapped here at Carolina. And so as he was sitting there, we went to camps. I mean, junior year of high school, I probably went to 24 camps. I went to Virginia Tech, to Marshall, to West Virginia, down to NC State. I went to Duke. I came to Carolina and snapped for 30 minutes, and I fell in love. I mean, I absolutely fell in love with this campus. I fell in love with Coach Alan Mogridge, who recruited me, and I knew this is where I wanted to be.
Yeah, so Belichick Stone was a long snapper. Shane Beamer was a long snapper. I mean, there's something about learning how to long snap. And I was the 3rd string long snapper at Clinch Valley College. And that got me on the travel squad. Because, I mean, I guess if 1 or 2 goes down, you got to have a 3rd one. We would just put a quarterback back there and throw it back there. But, I mean, this is nobody's doing that in the ACC.
Right.
So, were you grateful that your dad was realistic and told you, hey, you need to play center? Did he? Because, I mean, I have a son who's 11. He's a 6th grader. And I've already told him you need to learn to long snap. Can you be a long snapper with limited size and ability?
I think as long as you are consistent, accurate, and anybody can be a deep snapper. It's definitely something that you shouldn't hold lightly. Because, I mean, thank gosh nobody knew who I was at Carolina, because I never had a bad snap.
I was watching.
They know who you are when you have a bad snap.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody knows you, dude, when there's a bad snap.
So thankfully, I enjoyed being a deep snapper. Did I always want to play something else? Absolutely. But it was my chance to play at Division I football stadium at Carolina and be a part of something big. And, for him to sit there and tell me straight up, this is what you're doing. Not a lot of people can do that. And especially to their own children. And for him to sit there and say, you're doing this. If you want to be in the big leagues, you're doing this. Mm-hmm. And so at the time I didn't understand it, but to this day, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You definitely wouldn't. So, I asked him that. I said, did it help that, you were a 40-year high school coach? He said it didn't hurt. See, I'm going to have him back on the show when he has a little bit more time. And you might have caught the tail end of it. I think your mom was yelling at him in the background. I was hoping I could get it recorded, but I might have pressed end. So you played ball at UNC, and then did you go anywhere else, or you just stay there?
So I stayed here all 5 years. I started my last two, and then it got to the point where towards halfway through my senior season, it was all right. What am I doing? Am I going to take a job, or am I going to try to go to the NFL? So I tried to go to the NFL route, and I'd already set up. I was getting ready to meet with a scout, or not a scout, excuse me, an agent, and I was going to go to Arizona and go to a specialist combine. And the last workout before we left to go on our bowl trip to Detroit to play Rutgers, I popped my Achilles.
Mm.
And so basically it got to the point where, that was the good Lord's way of telling me, like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a coach, no matter what level, if it was high school or college. I always wanted to be a coach. And so it got to the point where I did what so many young coaches are doing these days. And I wrote emails, wrote letters to 200 some schools. I mean, I still remember the very first person I emailed was Hawaii, because who doesn't want to go Hawaii?
Exactly.
So, and here it's the year 2023, and I'm still waiting on them to email me back. So, but yeah, I mean, every day I would write close to 20 emails, 20 letters. Like, I wanted to get into coaching, and nobody would reply back to me. And then finally, one of our defensive GAs that was here at Carolina when I was playing was the linebackers coach up at JMU. And he called me up there for an interview, and I sat down with him. In fact, I knew Coach Withers because Coach Withers was the interim head coach for us in 2011. So I was like,
so you knew what you were getting into.
I knew what I was getting into, and I was like, I got two guys that I know. I mean, I just got to interview well. And I interviewed, and they said, Alex, we liked what you presented, and we wanted to hire you. And I said, all right, great. And they said, well, it's not going to pay anything.
And you get cussed out every day.
So I'm not going to get paid. I'm going to work these awful hours and get ripped for no money. I was like, and I'd have to move. And I was kind of like, let me get back to you. So I went into Coach Fedora's office, and I said, Coach Fedora, I got the opportunity to go be an intern at JMU. And he said, well, what's the pay? I said, they're not going to pay me anything. And Fedora's response was, well, let me check with our guys and see if you can do the exact same thing here, because you already know all of them. And I said, well, Coach, if you're allowing me to do that, I will 100% jump in. So he talked to the offensive guys. The offensive guys were fired up, said, heck, absolutely. We always need extra work. So I was a volunteer for 2 years with no pay. And I think everything that I got taught being a coach's son, getting ripped for 4 years in high school, it helped me fight through those 2 years of not getting paid. I just kept battling. And Dad always sat there and said, you got to be that guy. And I never knew what that meant until I finally got into the profession. You got to be that guy. Don't let your highs be too high and your lows be too low. Stay right in the middle, do the work, and just something's going to happen. And luckily, I got to become the offensive quality control coach and work with quarterbacks. So that's kind of how it started.
And that was Sam Powell.
So I actually was with my first year was 2015 when we went to the ACC championship game and won 11 straight. And I was like, boy, college coaching's fun.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to be with Marquise Williams and Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah. That was a pretty good team.
Which are two.
Y'all the ones that ran up the score on ODU and they quit, wasn't it?
Yes. So I got the chance to be around them, and then obviously 17 and 18 weren't our best years. We won 5 games total in those 2 years, which was tough. It was really tough to be a part of, especially after going to the ACC championship and fighting to the very end with Clemson. And then the next year we have a first round quarterback, and we're just putting up prolific offensive numbers. And so it was hard to transition going into from those 2 years to just winning 5 games. And then Coach Brown came, and I had to interview with Phil Longo, and then that's when I got to be with Sam.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been blessed and very fortunate to be around a great group of quarterbacks here.
So you played under.
So I got recruited by Butch Davis.
Okay.
So I was with Coach Davis for an entire year and a half. And then we were getting ready to report for 2011 fall camp, and they told us that he was not going to come back as the head coach. And so that's when Everett Withers, who was the DC that played for Coach Brown at App State,
Yeah.
that's when he became the interim head coach. And then we went 8-5. We got beat in the Independence Bowl pretty bad by Missouri, and they didn't retain him and hired Coach Fedora. And so my last 3 years was with Fedora as a player.
Yeah, so you've played under your dad, and then you played under Coach Butch Davis, and then you played under Everett Withers and Fedora. And now you're working for Coach Mac Brown. Kyle Jolly, he came on the show. Do you know Kyle?
I know of him. I've actually never got the chance to meet him in person.
Yeah, well, Kyle needs to hit you up because he's a high school coach down in Tampa.
Okay.
He needs to hit you up because he's alum of UNC. He came on the show and spoke. He was sending your dad messages. I guess he had recruited a tight end to Concord that had played for him.
Okay.
So all those different head coaches, what was different about them? What was the same? What kind of stands out?
I mean, they were all very powerful men. They all carried a lot of weight in our program. Butch had been in the NFL, so you kind of got a general manager type of feel about him. He kind of would just step back and let everybody, all the coaches coach. He didn't want to micromanage all of them. He wanted to be in charge of the bigger picture. And I think that's kind of how Coach Brown is. Coach Brown wants to be involved as much as he can, but he's taking care of everything else. And he wants
the face of the program.
He wants the coaches to coach, and he just wants to be able to. Yes. I mean, that guy could sell ice to an Eskimo. I mean, he's an incredible person when he speaks. And the first time I ever heard him speak to a recruit, I was like, good gosh, where do I sign to come back and play again?
So what is it? Is it enthusiasm? Is it charisma? What is it that makes him so good at selling?
It's just how genuine he is. I mean, he's not going to lie. I mean, he is by the books. I mean, he is going to tell you this is how it is. This school is hard academically. And he will tell them at the moment you sign the dotted line that you're coming to Carolina, I'm already going to be looking for somebody to replace you. I mean, he's a straight shooter. And a lot of people, that kind of deters them from coming here, but
it's the truth.
It's the truth.
It's the same thing Urban Meyer did at University of Florida.
And he does not want anybody to feel like that he lied. That is the last thing he wants to do.
I mean, you're seeing who's a competitor and who ain't.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to compete, go somewhere else.
Correct. And then with Withers and Fedora, where Withers had just been the DC, so this was all new to him being head coach. So Withers was more involved in the X's and O's defensively. And same with Fedora. Fedora had been a successful offensive coordinator all of his life, went to Southern Miss and killed it at Southern Miss, and then became our head coach. And, I mean, it was his offense. What we ran for till 2018 was his offense. It got twisted and we changed some puzzle pieces, but other than that, it was Fedora's offense. And so Fedora was always in our meetings. I mean, he was in our meetings from the time we walked in there to the time we left. I mean, he never wanted to get out. He wanted to be as involved as possible. And he actually, as a head coach, was in charge of the punt return team. And he had a pretty successful punt return with Ryan Switzer.
I'd want to coach that team too.
There's no doubt. No doubt. So
Lou Holtz had a great saying about punt return. Somebody asked him, say, Coach, well, what's your punt return? And he said, have a good punt returner. Yeah. What's your punt return? It pretty much is block everybody out.
Correct.
Line up, block everybody out, and run it up the middle. And have a good punt. You want to have a good punt return? Have a good punt returner.
Correct.
like the NFL Super Bowl. I mean, was that planned for the dude to run to the numbers on the left, and there'd be like 9 guys on that side of the numbers to reverse and field all the way back in the fourth quarter?
I mean, I'm sure it is. I mean, that's what Fedora had. It was called our wall return. And
yeah, there was a wall.
In fact, that was the one, if you remember when Giovanni Bernard back in 2012 took the punt return back against NC State, that was the call.
Yeah. And he's from St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good place to recruit.
Yeah, him and I came in together, so.
Yeah, my friend Mike Spencer, he was the head coach there in between George Smith's two stints. And Mike coached with me at Virginia Union. And he's a great guy. And he loves St. Thomas, man. There, I mean, did you see the interview that Giovanni Bernard did this year when like someone asked him about a fumbled snap or something?
Oh, the fake punt.
Yeah, and he was like, let me catch myself, and he's just like first class, man. Like
he was an awesome guy. I mean, he was a 4-star running back coming out of Florida, and you would never know it. I mean, he was just an awesome dude to be around.
Yeah. So, in your job now as UNC high school player relations, high school, coaches relations, what does that all entail?
So basically what I do is, we have what we call a recruiting footprint, and our recruiting footprint is from the DC area all the way down to the bottom of Georgia. And what I do is I focus all my attention in those 4 states. Now, that's not to say we can't go to Florida, we can't go to Maryland or to Tennessee, but I focus all my concentration on building relationships with everybody from the state of Georgia all the way up to Virginia. And I basically, the way I see it is, I'm the middle guy. So I relay things from our coaches to y'all and from y'all to our coaches. And it's been really fun. I just finished my first year at the end of January. And I've enjoyed every moment of it. I mean, I always joke, and people ask me how I like it. I'm basically calling 1,000 of my dad. Pretty much. It's second nature to me. Like, I know how to talk to y'all. I've been with one for 30 years. I know when to bother y'all, when not to bother y'all, and having him in my corner, I kind of use him as my guinea pig, saying, "Do you think this is a good idea?" It's been good to have.
Yeah, I went to you probably weren't there then, but when Coach Butch Davis came, he had Chuck Pagano and Blake was the D-line coach, and Shoop was the OC, and Sam Pittman was the O-line coach. But I went to the first coaching clinic that he ever put on, and that was fun, man. I mean, that was a great clinic, man.
Well, that was a good group of guys. John Shoop, I think the world of. He had been in the NFL, and then he came here with his West Coast style offense, and then he went up to a place called AC Reynolds High School up in Nashville and was an offensive coordinator. And then Sam Pittman, I think the world of. I think he's a great human being. He knew everybody's name in the building, didn't care if you weren't even in his room, he was going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And he just had that positive influence in the way he talked and the way he tried to motivate. I mean, there's a reason why Sam Pittman is the head coach of Arkansas.
Yes. Sam Pittman gave me a ride to my car that night.
Did he really?
Yeah. I got to ride, and he had a big Suburban or something. But there's a woman, her name is Sarah Blake Cheek, and she came on Totem Pole Nation to do a podcast with us. She had actually had a beef with Jason Brown, the former JUCO coach at Independence. And she got kicked off his show. Something happened where she left the show. They had a disagreement, but they were beefing with each other. And she came on our show, and we didn't know this at the time, but she was asked during our podcast, who is the sexiest head coach in the SEC? And she said, Sam Pittman. I have it on video. And yeah. And she said that the ugliest was Lane Kiffin, because she's a Tennessee fan. She hates Lane Kiffin. So I knew you would appreciate that. And I have the video. I sent it to Jolly to send to Pittman. And if you got Pittman's number, I'll send it to you so you can send it to him, because I don't even know if you ever saw it. You wouldn't believe it if you've seen it. Here you go, Coach. I'm going to try to pull it up. So Sam Pittman, how many years was he actually the O-line coach? Was he there the whole time that Butch was?
You know what? I actually don't know that answer. I know he was here with me. He was here in 09, 10, and 11. He was a really good recruiter. In fact, all my roommates were 4-star linemen. I had Landon Turner from Harrisonburg was one of my roommates. Russell Bodine, who went to Fork Union, and then James Hurst, who's from Plainfield, Indiana, and all of them were highly recruited guys that had Alabama and just about anywhere in the country, and they all came to Carolina because of Sam Pittman.
All right, I'm getting ready to show you this. He's probably the hottest college football coach in the SEC.
I love Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
Who would you say is probably the hottest college football coach in the SEC? I love Sam Pittman.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, she has a website that you can pay for her, subscription based.
Okay.
And she's also been on the cover of some magazines. All right. And some people said that was not appropriate, but she was we call her the queen of college football because she went 6-0 on her bowl picks, dude. She picked every single game. She picked every game. She even picked the TCU upset.
Wow. Good for her.
I didn't know anybody else that went 6-0. So, that's why we had her back on the show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome, man. So, going into this next season, one thing that I know older high school coaches complain about all the time is they say it's 18 and 19-year-old kids making decisions. Kids that are in college, freshmen in college are the ones that are making decisions when they first look at the film. Like, can this kid play or not? And that drives some high school coaches crazy. Do you look at every player yourself?
I look at every player that gets sent to me. So what I do is if you sent me a kid, I'm going to watch him. If I think this kid's got potential, I send it to our recruiting department, and then our recruiting department watches it. If it gets past them, then it gets to the position coach. Before it ever gets to the headman's got no idea until the position coach likes him and the coordinator from both sides of the ball like him. So that's how we do it here.
It's the way it should be done. It's a checkoff system. And I tell the players that if some coaches don't have your information to send them film, but when the college coach goes to the high school and gets the names, gets the film, looks at the huddle, he's got to sign off on it. Then he's got to bring it to the coordinator, and then the coordinator, the position coach has got to sign off on it. Then the coordinator, then the head coach. So I talked about this in one of my little mini podcasts. There's 3 tests. That first, you must pass the grades test. Because at UNC, you can't be a bad student. If you're making D's and F's in high school, Chapel Hill ain't the place for you.
No, and I can tell you right now, that one back there in the very end that's making all the calls and is the face of the program, if you have below a 2.5, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Don't even bother.
So you got the grades test, then you got the eyeball test, and then you got, the film test. So if the kid doesn't pass the eyeball test, the film's got to pop, right? It's got to be Giovanni Bernard, but he squatted 500 pounds at St. Thomas.
Yeah.
So just talk a little bit about that. I know you're not allowed to talk about specific players, but there's all these players out there that want to get D1 offers. Y'all can only take 25 guys a class, and you're going all the way from Washington, D.C. to the bottom of Georgia. And there's a lot of good players in Georgia and South Carolina. We ain't even gotten into North Carolina, Virginia, or the DMV. Correct. So just talk a little bit about that because, it's crazy.
Biggest thing is like we've said, if you don't have the grades, we're done. Unless you show improvement, we're done. In fact, there's guys that we have to send to the committee and say he's on track to do better. His grade point average will get higher. And so, it's a process to get in this school. Just because we offer you does not mean it's a done deal. And so with the eyeball test, you could be 6'5", 285, look beautiful. But it's like the cliche saying, look like Tarzan, play like Jane.
Yeah.
And if what we see on film doesn't translate to the size that you're presenting, then we're off. Same with on the other end of the spectrum. If you're 5'7", 5'8", and $150, like you're not going to pass the eye test with anybody at this division level.
Yeah, I mean, Switzer was not a big guy, but he was very muscular. I saw him when he played for George Washington in West Virginia at a 707.
If you're a game changer, then all right, now it gets to the point of, do we take the risk? And Switz was running like 4.3, 4.4 out of high school. I mean, we knew he was going to be fast. We knew his change of direction was unmatched.
Yeah.
But it got to the point, like even when he first got here, I mean, I was a junior and he first got here, and I was like, this guy's going to get hit. He's going to be done. And it's just how well built is he? Can he withstand the hits? That's all those questions you got to ask. Can this kid survive 4 quarters in the ACC? And so that's kind of the process that we do. But like I said, if any high school coach sends me somebody, I'm watching them. I don't just take the names and throw them. I watch them, because if I don't think they pass any bar test, then don't even show them to them. And I've done this now for about 8 years. I've been around the great quarterbacks like Marquise Williams, Mitch Trubisky, Sam Howell, and now Drake. I know what a quarterback should look like when they come here. And Chip Lindsey has his own criteria. And so if the criteria is not met with him, then we're off. So every coach has a different criteria.
You know, some high school coaches take recruiting personal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you didn't offer my guy, or you didn't recruit my guy. And, you know, it's not personal, because, I mean, it's not always up to you.
Correct.
It's not always up to the guy that recruits your school. It could be above them.
And there's a lot of times where I think a kid's a no-brainer, and position coach doesn't like them, because, like I said, they all have their own certain criteria. Some guys want guys that are track guys. Some guys want guys that can lift the entire weight room. I mean, it all depends on what they want.
So if a kid is a skill kid and he gets asked by a college coach, do you play another sport? Is that a code word for, do you run track?
Track is the next best thing. We like guys that run track.
Because you can get legit times.
You can get legit times, and there's a website that we can get on, and it shows us what every single kid ran. If he ran in just a regional track meet, a district track meet, we can see the times. And so it kind of helps us to, verify, okay, this guy really is fast, not just from what we're seeing on film. This guy, here's the numbers. This guy can run a 10.500. And so I was always a kid growing up to play every sport. I mean, Dad would sit there and say, if you're not going to play a spring sport, you're running track. And so I did the 800, the 3200 relay. I did it all. And I played basketball up until my junior year. That's when I stopped. But I think, to me, kids that play multiple sports, you can't beat it. I mean, you're just an athlete, and that's what I want to see. I mean, I don't want to see a guy that's just focused on football 24/7, 365 days out of the year. Because by the time you get with us, that's all you're doing. The kid's going to get tired of it. So I like multi-sport athletes. So
what other advice could you give high school kids? Because, I mean, I saw Delane Fitzgerald. I don't know if you know Delane. I think he's the head coach of Southern Utah, or one of those directional Utah schools. But he said he's getting film from an 8th grader. Like, dude, like,
I've gotten several emails from 8th grade quarterbacks, and I won't even watch them, because you haven't developed.
What advice can you give? I mean, I remember I had a parent tell me once, I want my son getting offers in 9th grade. Well, like, I want a Lamborghini. But, like, first of all, he's not starting. And second of all, why would you feed your son to the wolves? Because some of these guys, they ain't got a soul, and they ain't had one in a long time. But, like, recruiting's like courting. I mean, it's like being the prettiest girl in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Every guy wants to have a date with you. And then once they get the date, they go and find somebody else. Just like you said, Coach Brown says. So what advice can you give parents and players out there about how to get recruited? Is there a camp to go to? Is it a website to be on?
So to me,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're at the Jumpman School and you have the greatest colors of all time. I mean, you are at there's no other school. I mean, Jumpman, you wear Jordans all the time. So, like, what can you give advice? This is from the guy from the Jumpman School.
Stars don't mean anything. I've been around several 5-stars that aren't worth what they've been rated as. And I've been around a lot of 2, 3-star guys that are incredible football players. So to me, don't worry about the stars. The stars will come. And don't take just because you don't like that school or go everywhere. If you're going to go somewhere, go with an open mind. All right. And like I said, when I got recruited, I went to 20-some summer camps. I mean, back in the day, it was harder because we didn't have huddle, and I was burning DVDs and sending them out, mailing them to coaches. So you had to get out. And to me, that still holds true. We need to see you in person because we can't always go to every single football game from Virginia to Georgia. It's impossible. And we're only allotted so many days.
I mean, and even when the college coaches come to the games, like I've had people tell me, and I was on the college staff for 3 years. I mean, well, it's any colleges coming to watch us play. I mean, usually when the colleges come, it's because the guy's already committed or they got a guy that they really want. They're not actually scouting the game. Now, if they see somebody, they see somebody. But, I mean, that's why we have huddle. I mean, all of the highlights are right there. So talk about that, you know. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, huddle has really evolved the recruiting process. And I mean, like the fact now that I can sit there and watch, like 3 years ago, I was sitting there watching quarterbacks, and it got to the point where I didn't want to watch their highlight video. I wanted to watch their game video, and I could do that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see, all right, this guy's throwing the ball, and he's thrown it 30 times. He's only completed it 12. Like, that's not good. And I get to watch the negatives and the positives. So, like, when I'm watching a kid, I don't watch the highlight film. I start with in-game film. And I want to see, is he making the right throws? Is he making the right decisions? Is he forcing it into double coverage? Running backs, are they missing lanes? How consistently is this offensive lineman dominating a D lineman? That's the stuff I want to see. Highlight film to me is just, it's a trick.
Yeah, it's smoke and mirrors.
It's smoke and mirrors.
It's a humbug. It's
100%.
P.T. Barnum. You know, it's a sign that says this way 50 cents, and you open up that way and you go out the door. And you got to pay another 50 cents.
And once I started figuring out that it's more than the highlight tape, that's when I started, you know, being a better evaluator and starting to really see, all right, can this guy play consistently for 4 quarters? And so, I mean, I may watch the highlight film for about a minute, and if I'm not blown away, then it is what it is. And if I am blown away, then I go game film.
25 kids from D.C. to the end of Georgia. I mean, it's not a lot.
And here's the other thing.
How many of those guys are high school guys now?
The other thing people don't realize is COVID. COVID hurt us. And COVID hurt a lot of schools because we gave them another year. And so, like, that's why we only signed 19. We didn't get to sign the 25 because we don't have any spots. You're only allotted 120 per Title IX. So that has changed. And luckily, we're slowly getting back where we need to be. But COVID hurt that big time.
Do college coaches want to hear from parents?
No.
Or do they want to hear from the players? Talk a little bit about that.
I know once you get to the college level, I mean, you're starting to become a grown-up. So you need to start fighting your own battles. And Coach Brown always says it's not what you say, it's what they hear. And so, you could be sitting there talking to a kid saying, here's where you need to improve. Well, he may go tell mom and dad, he just ripped me. No, I said, here's what you need to improve. And so I think, to me, parents should stay out, period. And I get it. When I have a child of my own, I'm going to fight like my teeth out to get every single possible advantage for my child. That's how we are as parents. And so I get why they call, but at the same time, they got to know that this is a profession. Our checks are in these players' mouths, basically. And so what they don't understand is we have to play the best 11 every moment of the game. We can't just sit there and let little Johnny come out there and play because mom's called me 13 times. That's not how the world works. And it gets to the point where the participation trophies. I mean, you're on the team. You should be blessed to be on the team. And so that's kind of how I feel. I could talk about that for hours. Yeah. But yeah, parents, in my opinion, just stay out of the way.
Yeah, because the college coach wants to talk to the kid because they really need to get to know that kid. You're not going to be dealing with the parent, every day because they're going to be living on their campus. So, if there's a player out there that thinks they're getting overlooked, they need to come to y'all's camp. They need to go basically if they're from North Carolina, go to the biggest camps in North Carolina. If they're from Virginia, go to the biggest camps in Virginia. There'll be other small schools and basically get in front of the coaches and, have good film and have good grades. Is there anything else that you can think of other than have good grades, have good film, and work hard, be a good kid?
Well, now with NIL, don't always be looking for the money. And why I say that is we're not going to recruit anybody that wants an NIL deal. You have to come to Carolina and prove to us that you deserve an NIL deal. And
what are the rules on that? School us up because I have no clue on NIL deals.
First and foremost, there should be no agents calling your players because that is 100% illegal.
As high school kids?
As high school kids, they cannot have agents.
Okay.
And
they could be an uncle or a street agent, but not an official lawyer agent.
Correct.
Okay.
And so biggest thing is, and it's happened now that NIL's become a factor is, a bunch of kids are getting bought to go somewhere else.
But weren't they getting bought before?
Yeah, under the radar, but
now it's legal. Cheating. Basically, some people, the cheating is legal now. It just came out. This has nothing to do with you, but a quarterback that played for a team, and now he's the quarterback for the Bears, said that he got a big bag to go to a certain school. And this was before the NIL deals occurred. So, like, that NIL deal doesn't have to do with y'all, does it? It has to do with the boosters or a company or something in Chapel Hill?
Yeah, we stay out of it. But what I'm trying to get at is we don't want to have to recruit. We don't want to have to pay somebody to come to here. Mac only wants kids that want to be at Carolina because at the end of the day, a degree from here is going to be worth way more than that NIL you had for 4 years. And that's what he's trying to enforce and preach and tell to our kids now. Because here's the deal. Not all of our kids on our football team have NIL deals. And we don't know who's got them. But I do know that not all of them have them. But we stay completely away from it. And it's just the NIL is just don't let anybody buy you. Go where you want to go because you love the program, the coaching staff, the facilities, the fan base. Don't feel like you have to get bought to go somewhere else.
Yeah. What percent of the recruits are we really talking about? Is this half of them? Half of those 20 guys, or is it a smaller percentage are all of them getting NIL deal offers?
Well, I'd say it's probably based on the caliber of the kid, probably based on his ratings, position. Let's be honest. I mean, they're probably going to try to pay more for a quarterback than they would an offensive lineman. And so, not
look
everybody.
at Texas A&M. Texas A&M, they had the most players with NIL deals, and it didn't pay off. You know, they did not have a good season.
No, and
as
now
far as I know.
And what's happened just recently is these schools that were offering the money, kid gets on campus, they don't have the money. So that's going on too, is they're promising kids money that they don't have. Because all NIL is raising money to pay to the kids. There's no money getting kept for themselves. I mean, it's getting pushed back to the kids. And if you don't have the money, why are you telling them you do? So
yeah, and it's name, image, likeness, meaning that, they're being sponsored. I mean, they can acquire sponsorships basically, and there's a price, and there has to be something that when people, nothing's free.
No.
So you are going to have to do something like, I don't know what it is, but they're just like,
it's slow. It got out of hand. I think they're trying to reel it back in, but in my opinion, is if you want to get paid, you should be able to get fired.
Yeah. I mean, like these 1 year deals, guy goes 1 year, then he goes another year, 1 year, then he goes another 1 year. And he's getting $1 million every time, or I don't even know how much money it is. But as a high school coach, I can call you about a player and tell you, hey, we got a guy. But what if it's the player down the street or in the same county that says, hey, Alex, dude, you need to take a look at this dude at Berg. Like, he's wrecking shop. Like, is that important for high school players to know that, you need to make sure that you're being a good citizen during the games with other teams and you're competing at the highest level? Because if another coach calls you about a player, like, you're like, okay, here we go. Like,
it definitely holds a lot more weight when I can get rival schools, neighboring schools to sit there and say, Alex, this kid's the real deal. You need to watch him. I think that definitely holds weight. I mean, just don't be a turd on Friday nights and represent yourself, the school, and your family well, because it holds a lot of weight. So I think if and I've actually had coaches call me and say, this kid at this other school, he's the real deal. And it definitely, turns my antennas up and makes me more intriguing towards the kid.
Yeah. So I'm just like trying to get some information for any players or parents that may be out there watching. What would you like to tell them? Is there anything that we're missing, Alex, that recruits need to know, or parents that want their son to go play college football? Everybody says D1. I got to go D1.
Biggest thing is, it don't matter where you go. If you're good, the NFL will find you. It's like that kid at Lenore Ryan that was a second-round draft pick for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, he didn't go anywhere big. He went to Lenore Ryan. So I think if you can't get to D1, don't feel bummed out. At the end of the day, you're playing football because you love the game of football. You're not playing it because I want to get to the highest level.
Yes.
Because here's the big deal, and everybody says it. NFL stands for not for long.
Ooh.
And that's what, at the end of the day, you need to go somewhere where you can be set for life long after football. And that's why Coach Brown says it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision.
Yeah,
because
education.
when football is taken away from you, you're set with that degree from the University of North Carolina. And so that's the biggest thing, is go where you feel like you can be the best academically, that holds a lot of weight, and that has a good football program if that's what you want. But at the end of the day, play football because you love the game of football.
And not because you want to rack up offers or you want to tweet, this guy, I've been offered by this college that, in Virginia, listen, I heard about a kid. I've never heard of Arizona recruiting Virginia. So, like, as a college coach, if there's a guy in Virginia that claims he got an Arizona offer or something, is that like a red light, or like social media? Talk a little bit about that.
Boy, social media. I'm not a big fan of social media. Like I rarely tweet. I do a lot of retweeting. So I'm probably the worst person talking about social media. But what I can say is if there's any players that are watching or any coaches that are watching to tell their kids, it's be humble on social media.
Ooh.
We get it. You're a good football player. You don't need to remind me every day when I look at Twitter to check what's going on. Like, I get it, buddy. You don't go after the likes and the retweets. Just be yourself and don't be fake.
Yeah, focus on what's important, which is being a good teammate, making good grades.
If kids these days spent more time on football and academics than social media, we'd be in a lot better position. I mean, as a country. So limit yourself on social media. Watch what you say, because the moment it gets posted, it's there for life. And it doesn't take 5 minutes for somebody to sit there and screenshot it. So just watch what you say, be a good person, be humble. Don't go after the likes, the retweets. Like when guys sit there and they got their top 5, and then for 5 straight days they're saying, "Hey, Bama fans, how do I look in crimson red?" Like, we don't need that. Like, just be yourself.
Have you ever had a kid who claimed that they had a North Carolina offer and they really didn't?
Yes.
Wow. So some of these offers that kids are tweeting about, or high school coaches are tweeting about, might not be real offers. Then How can you tell?
So
it doesn't even matter to y'all.
It's easy for me. So all I do is, if I see something, if I see a kid say, I'm blessed to get an offer from the University of North Carolina, I go to the school. I see where he plays. I go to the recruiting coaches area, or I just go to our recruiting guys and say, "Did we just offer this kid?" And they'll say no. So then it's on me. I'll call the head coach and say, "Coach, your player's posting that he's getting fake offers. Like, we can't have this. Like,
wow.
We didn't offer him."
That's a big deal. That's a big
it 100% is a big deal.
That's making y'all. I mean, it's making y'all look like you're offering a kid who might not be up to y'all standard or something like that. I mean, that's it's basically like y'all are offering him. I don't even know how much it costs to go to North Carolina, Chapel Hill, but it's got to be a lot.
Yeah.
So that you actually take that very seriously when someone tweets out they have a North Carolina.
I take it very seriously. Because to me, having played here, this is a special place to be. And for you to have the audacity to post a fake offer, I mean, that holds weight to me and a bunch of people that played here. And we're trying not to tarnish anything we built here at this university. Because at the end of the day, I'm bleeding Carolina blue now.
Yeah, I mean, you played there and you've coached there and you've been there you've survived 4 different head coaches. So, I mean, that's a heck of an accomplishment, man, to be there with 4 different head coaches. I'm just thinking about questions that parents always have. What about these camps? How much weight do you put in these camps that college coaches don't go to? These showcases for middle schoolers and, ones in Las Vegas and, next generation, kid with 7-on-7 helmet and dancing and masks and smoke.
We have kids that are recruited that go to those things, but that holds 0 weight to us. Like if a kid sits there and says, "I'm going to so-and-so 7v7," that's great. For us, it all goes back to the basics of, is he a good person? Does he have a good GPA? Does he want to be at Carolina? And the biggest thing is we don't like offering kids until they come to Carolina and see it firsthand.
Yeah.
And if you still like Carolina, okay, let's offer you.
And you didn't even say anything about playing there. And you didn't even say anything about size, which all that's important.
Yes.
You got to get through all that even before you get to what size you are and what your film looks like.
Correct.
So, it's really a lot. so many people are focused on getting recruited by this school or that school, and I want my son to go here or there. Really, they just need to focus on what's important now. Getting good grades, going to the weight room, listening to their coach. I always preach. I mean, Michael Jordan got cut from the varsity team as a sophomore. Tom Brady didn't start as a freshman in high school on a freshman team that didn't win a game. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, he didn't start but 1 year at North Carolina. He was first-round pick.
Correct.
I mean, anything can happen. Like you said, NFL, if the NFL is your ultimate goal, that's great. But, like, what if you get hurt? That's one thing that the degree from North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
100%. And that's why, like, the transfer portal, if you don't play right away, it's not the end of the world. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, like you said, is a prime example. He rode behind Marquise's shadow for the entire 2015 season. And then he comes in and kills it and becomes a first-round draft pick. So you never know. Just because you don't play, it doesn't mean it. Just be patient. Just be patient. And remember why you went to where you went. There's a reason why you went to University of North Carolina, University of Virginia Tech, UVA. There's a reason why you went there. Just stay the course, keep working, and something is bound to happen.
Here's Jim Tim. I don't know if you know Jim. He's from Rochester, New York. He went to East Stroudsburg. He said, look at what happened with those North Carolina Tech kids. Now, I don't know if you remember, but there was a Jim Tim got conned into going down there and coaching at this prep school, and it was called North Carolina Tech. And the guy basically just stole their money. Antonio Brown went there before he went somewhere else. Yeah. So, but what about character? I mean, you asked the high school coach, but when y'all go into the high school, how can y'all check a kid's character? Is he a good kid? How do y'all do that?
So not me, because I don't go out, but, for our coaches, it's hard to judge a kid's character in 5 minutes. I feel like you really need to sit down and talk to a kid. Now, I've also heard the rule of if what you say in 60 seconds says a lot. If you can impress me in 60 seconds, that's great. But that's why we ask the head coach, we ask an assistant coach, we ask a teacher, we ask a guidance counselor, we ask a principal. If all of them are saying he's a great kid, he's a good kid. But we don't just ask the coach or just the player or just look at the player and talk to the player. We ask multiple sources, because if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right.
Yeah. And that you know that from being the son of a high school coach and getting recruited, and then from doing it on your end too. Y'all are going to do your due diligence, and y'all probably have students there that check the social media of guys that want to go there. They make sure that there's not anything being posted that's questionable, because I've heard kids, not at North Carolina particularly, but kids getting scholarships pulled because of stuff they put on social media.
100%. When I was here, our compliance office looked at every single one of ours.
Wow.
From Twitter to Facebook to Instagram they looked at everything. And that's why I have become like a non-social media person, because I was terrified to even post something. And so, we monitor it. And if we see something we don't like, we tell the player. When I was a QC, I either told the player or I went to the coach and said, hey, he's got this up. He called him, say, take it down now. And by that time, it's too late. So, but just at the end of the day, just be a good person. Watch what you say. If you even have to remotely question if this is a good idea to post it, don't do it.
So being, as we're wrapping up, being the son of a Virginia high school league coach, and that went down to North Carolina and, coached there too, what would you like to say to the coaches out there that may be listening or will watch this in the future? What advice would you give them, or, what would you like to say to round us out, Alex?
Enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy being around those kids, because I've watched it firsthand, the impact that my dad has made on kids. And just what he's done, helping them go to college, helping them find jobs, and just, I mean, there's guys from back from when they won the 89 state championship game that he still talks to. And it's just, you guys, I'm sure you know, but as a player, you all make the most impact in these kids' lives. And you're with them the majority of the time. And that's why I respect high school coaches, because I know you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you want to impact these kids. And that to me speaks volumes, because I mean, I've sat there and I've watched him do laundry. I've watched him chalk the paint and mow the lawn and mop the from top to bottom of the locker room. And I just, at the time, I didn't always enjoy it because he was always gone. But when I was little, and then I got to be around him more when I got to grow up. I mean, I got to be a manager and a water boy. And I mean, those are days I'll never forget. It's just being on that sideline with him. But just the impact that you all make on players does not go unnoticed. And I respect and appreciate every single one of y'all from, I mean, because I've been around it, and, you know, just what y'all do for these kids. They don't know now, but they will. They will figure it out sooner or later.
Yeah. All this was made possible, y'all. We have had 3 coaches from UNC today, and we've had Coach Mars's dad. And it's all because of you. And I appreciate that, man. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I got one more to do with Marcus Roberson, the linebacker coach at Fork Union. Now, if you can make it at Fork Union, you can make it anywhere. And I know there's probably been some good players from UNC that went to Fork Union. So he's going to, you know, there's all these JUCOs and community colleges and private schools, and I don't know what they are. They're like, you know, football academies or, you know, rogue prep schools. But Fork Union, they test, you know, they pass the test of time with the amount of people they've had in the NFL. So we're going to have him on, Coach. Thank you. I owe you. Man, it's been the biggest day for the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast and Rat Coach, our sponsor. You know, the #1 weight room software in America. So, Coach, thank you. We'll stay in touch, man. We'll have you back on, too.
All right. And if for anybody that's still on there, come to practice, just call me. We love to be.
How can they hit you up? What's your Twitter or your cell number or email or whatever?
My cell number is 919-260-7447. Just call me, text me. I'm on Twitter. You can find my email at gohills.com. If anybody wants to come, our clinic is the 24th and 25th. We've got Clyde Christensen speaking, who was a former Tar Heel. And his resume speaks volumes for being with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and all of them.
Coach the Colts.
So he's I'm pumped to hear him speak, and with him speaking, Chip Lindsey's also going to speak some quarterback game and offensive philosophy, and then we'll break out into position groups, and you'll be able to talk with each position. So if anybody wants to come, that's March 24th.
Are we going to get into that North Carolina barbecue?
Yes.
Because Butch Davis, he had a pig picking. That thing was huge.
There'll be some barbecue that Friday night.
I know Coach Brown's gonna do it right, man.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.